Zack Hayes is traded to Carolina for, you guessed it, future considerations. Our fans jumbled the lines for us, lines that they would like to see from the VGK. And we also have a preview of tonight's Golden Knights versus Penguins game.
Your Locked On Golden Knights, your daily podcast on the Vegas Golden Knights, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Hi again, everyone. Tony Cardasco along with Chris Golick. We come to you from Las Vegas each and every day, 5 days a week. We appreciate you tuning in. Thanks for making us your first listen every day. It's free and available wherever you get your podcasts. And I also was checking in last night, sounding really good, Chris, on Spotify. A lot of folks are tuning in over there and everywhere across the universe. And we also are on the YouTube channel, Locked On Golden Knights. Please subscribe and please leave those very important comments. So, Chris, VGK yesterday, they trade the big guy, 6'3", 2.25, Zack Hayes. I think he weighs a little bit more. He's a big dude, though, from Henderson, right? You and I saw him at the M up close and personal. Trade him to the Carolina Hurricanes, who have a field day with future considerations. The defenseman was up with the VGK in the preseason. We saw him then. He had one assist so far this season for Henderson. Again, traded for future considerations, no joke. And according to Kelly McCrimmon, he says in the past that this means that it is something that opens up cap space, right? It's another asset, if you will, for the Vegas Golden Knights. So let's start off by talking about this trade, Zack Hayes, and now what happens with VGK. I know yesterday you and I were texting, and I said, watch, they're going to put Brett Howden on IR, okay? And then a few hours later comes out, he's on IR. So this might clear up even more space for them to do something right now.
Yeah, so let's address the first thing, everybody. Future considerations. Yes, on paper, we got absolutely nothing, whatever future considerations means in the big picture. So be it. I mean, maybe the future considerations for taking Max Pacioretty was give us a throwaway down the road. And no disrespect to Zack Hayes, he's not a throwaway, but that's, the transaction that took place, I guess is what we can say. So what really happened now, Zack Hayes is gone. We now have 49 of 50 available contracts, which means we have room to make some type of a deal. We know the Vegas Golden Knights are never standing still as long as the trade window, free agent window, any window is open to acquire players. Kelly McCrimmon is working the phones and at least kicking the tires on a couple of things right now. So does that mean the trade is happening today or tomorrow? I don't think we're going to get that far. I actually checked last night. I was thinking about this. It hit me about like 1 a.m. when I got home from ref and hockey games. The Kings put Cal Peterson on waivers. So I was just curious if he was like a min salary or what he was, but Cal Peterson's got a big $3, $4, $5 million salary or something like that.
Something like that. Yeah.
But I was wondering though, Tony, if it was like an $800K salary, if like that was the move, they were going to just put him down in Henderson and see what happens. But that's not what's going to happen. But to paraphrase, Vegas now has the ability to do something. They have flexibility now. Is it happening today, tomorrow, next week, maybe even next month? Maybe not, but there's a little bit of flexibility now in the event McCrimmon sees something come across the plate for the Vegas Golden Knights that he feels puts us in a better spot to make a deep Stanley Cup run. Could be an injury, could be someone on IR, as you alluded to. It could be a whole lot of things, but now is the time, when the GMs, you're starting to get some separation now. There's probably about 22, 23 playoff teams. Of those 22, 23 playoff teams, there's probably 10 or 11 teams you can point at and make a case to win the Stanley Cup right now. There's 4 or 5 teams who they're not going to be there in the end, and there's a few fringe teams. So this is when teams start identifying how they feel the season's going to play out, and they start thinking about long-term, short-term. Vegas obviously is going to be a buyer as the trade deadline in February looms. There's other teams that are going to be sellers, and somewhere in the middle of all this, it all works out and gives people like me and you content to talk about.
You know what else I was thinking? First thing that came to mind yesterday after this trade, we know how well this team from Henderson is doing, not well at all. And are they going to perhaps start to break up the Silver Knights and perhaps acquire and bring in some new talent? That was one of my first thoughts yesterday.
Yeah, maybe Tony. And Zach Hayes is funny. I hadn't looked at his stat line. You said he's sitting on 1 assist for the season down there. That
Yeah,
is that's
not good.
unfortunate because he did have didn't he have a 2-goal game in the preseason with the VGK?
Again, remember it was against Arizona, and
The
he
first
had to
was it
play.
both in the first period, right? It's like two
Yeah,
goals early.
yeah. Two early goals, and remember they pulled him off the bus to go to Minnesota because Zach Whitecloud was out in the preseason. He was on the bus. Silver Knights were going to Southern California, and they pulled him off the bus and said, "No, you're going to
Yes.
Minnesota." And he got there like an hour plus,
Yeah, he
right
barely
before
made the
the
game.
game.
He barely made the game. It's remarkable the way these stories work out sometimes, and how we as journalists can dig this stuff up and everything. And I forgot who there's a couple different. I think there's a couple different pieces out there about that, which is pretty fun to learn about. It's just a wild, crazy life of these AHLers, and trying to make it all the way up. But Zach Hayes, it's kind of a strange deal because you look at the Golden Knights depth defensive chart right now. You got your top six down to Ben Hutton currently with the Vegas Golden Knights. Your eighth defenseman, based on NHL experience, is Daniil Marimanov, which, according to Cap Friendly, I believe has been called up, but the Vegas Golden Knights have not officially announced that yet. So I'm not sure what's happening there. After Marimanov, you got Caden Korczak. After Caden Korczak is where you probably start looking at Zack Hayes and some of the other VGK defensemen. So his time for the Vegas Golden Knights was not coming up anytime soon, unless last season happened, which if that's the case, he might have been coming up next week. Who knows? But I liked Zack Hayes. I liked his shot. I did notice at the Silver Knights games, his shot was noticeable. He has a very
Was he a
quick and
left-handed?
strong release.
Left-hander
I
with a
don't know.
cannon? I think he's left.
He could be. I don't remember, but I
Maybe
remember it was a
replicating.
fast, hard release.
This is me doing it. Okay, that's good.
For the audio people, you're doing the.
I'm showing. Show us another graph. I like those graphs from yesterday. There you go. No, I was showing the left-handed slap shot, sorta. I'm just replicating, emanating what he does. 103 games with Henderson for Zack Hayes, and so now some of the corresponding moves for the VGK. Danil Marimanov goes up to the parent team. And I don't want to quote Kelly McCrimmon here, cooking the books, but Brett Howden goes on IR. And yesterday, when you and I were texting,
So
I was
where was that announced at officially? Did Cap Friendly call that?
I thought it was somewhere on Cap Friendly. I was digging last
Okay,
night, but
I
yeah,
got you.
it's unofficially official. We'll
Okay,
probably hear more about that coming up today.
okay, fair enough. Yeah, I mean, we talked about that before. I'm trying to find Zack Hayes is a lefty or a righty right now, but we'll find that later.
I'm just
He's
emulating his shot.
he's 224 pounds
He better
and
be
just a
a lefty.
defenseman. Lefty, Tony. Good job. You got that one right.
Because I could see him on the left side of the ice there.
Yeah. So were we talking about Marimanov cooking the
Marimanov,
books?
cooking the books.
I mean, listen, there's all these loopholes.
I didn't use that terminology. Who used that? Kelly McCrimmon. McCrimmon used that.
And he did. No, and that's fair. And listen, there's all these. My hat straight. There we go. There's all these different. Yeah, there you go, Tony. All these different ways to utilize the cap space. And we talked about in one of our segments about 2 weeks ago. At the time, there were 17 teams at or above the upper limit of the salary cap, utilizing LTIR to get to that point. And are all of those teams necessarily playing it completely fair? Heck no. No way. I'll say this again. When I was running poker rooms with my teams and things like that, I was concerned because a lot of people like rules. They like having rules. They like every single scenario that's out there. They like having a rule for that we can cite in the event we have to make a decision, call contact gaming, etc. My argument was every time you put a new rule into the rule book, there are a group of people sitting around trying to figure out a way to utilize that rule for their best interest. It's no different in the salary cap world. There are teams of people on the Vegas Golden Knights, from McCrimmon to people, a bit down the down the depth chart, if you will, upper management who read the rules. That's why they do. And we haven't done a lot of this year yet, but a player coming up for 3 days, going back down. It's the Vegas has 2 days off, so they call up someone from the AHL and send it back down to get some of that relief as the season progresses. Like there's all these weird little rules that do exist. And listen, the rules are out there, and whoever plays the game fair, foul, or otherwise, whoever plays the game best has a good chance to make a run come April, May, June, even if it goes into July sometimes, but April, May, and June for the Stanley Cup playoffs. And that's what matters. So you got to cook the books a little bit. If you got to not cook the books a little bit, whatever it takes, it's all part of the game. And we're in Vegas. We should now acknowledge that before anybody on the planet about cooking the books and getting a little bit kinky when it comes to some rules.
Well, are there even books with the Golden Knights? That's my question too.
There's books, and there's sharps, some more Vegas terms that are finding ways to utilize.
One of our viewers, listeners said, we could do away with the fog if I just move to the left. So if you notice, I've been leaning a little to the left this morning. If you can notice there on the video side. But awesome. Yes, definitely interesting. And now a couple of spots open up with the Silver Knights, I should say. And so do they bring up players from the Ghost Pirates? They're off to a good start. They're in second place right now. Savannah.
I noticed, I follow them on Twitter, and they're showing the goals and the highlights and stuff like that. They got crowds. They are drawing. It seems like an active environment. I think maybe the next time we have some time off between games, we should maybe dedicate a segment to the Ghost Pirates, just kind of talking about what's happening down there. Maybe we can reach out and get someone like on the marketing side on the show, and
sure.
have something like that. That might be a fun little piece there. But listen, it's all part of the Golden Knights family all the way down in Savannah, and the fact that they're drawing people to the games and creating a new hockey market, and there's seems to be some creative marketing. Remember, to announce their mascot, was it the jersey reveal or the mascot? It was one of them. They skydove someone off an airplane for the announcement. I think it was the jersey announcement.
Jersey, yeah, the jersey.
So, I mean, that's creative. Let's jump out of a plane to announce our jersey. Cool. Okay. It's fun. It's fun.
Yeah, so definitely we might see somebody though filling in up here with the AHL team from.
Yeah, potentially. There's if you go down their roster, there's some familiar names up and down the roster, no doubt.
We got to bring Isaiah. Can they move goaltenders there? Do they have some room to bring up Seville again? I just thought that he should have been with the Silver Knights.
That was kind of a surprise. And Hutch, who I feel like I haven't seen him on the roster in a while. I could be wrong. I'm just shooting from the hip right now, but I can't remember if I've seen a Hutch get a start in a while. I mean, obviously Brossoit needs to get his time. Patera is the next one up that's being developed right now. And Hutchinson, like I said, I think Hutchinson was just that strange signing, which is why I alluded maybe the Golden Knights didn't know the complete severity of Robin Lehner, because if they did, in my opinion, there is zero chance they would have signed Hutchinson. That again, Hutchinson was more of a in case of emergency break glass goalie.
Yeah, he was a depth piece for them, obviously. Right. Coming up next, our listeners used the Cassidy blender to come up with some new lines. We're going to talk about that when we return right here on Locked On Golden Knights. BetOnline.net is your number one source for sports betting information, for stats, news, and analysis. You get the latest odds from every professional sport, every professional and amateur league that's out there, football to basketball, soccer to esports. We've got it all at betonline.net, including the NHL, of course. And if you love sports podcasts, you can find those as well at BetOnline. And we are always the fastest and easiest way to get your betting fix. Head to the website today or use your mobile device to learn more. BetOnline, where the game starts. Welcome back to Locked On Golden Knights for this Thursday edition. And Chris, yesterday, some really cool stuff going on our Twitter feed as the fans, as soon as we mentioned in the description of the show a couple days ago about jumbled lines, fans just dove headfirst right into the action. And I saw a lot of the reactions, and I just want to point out, let's point out some of them of what the fans were saying yesterday. VGK Christian started off. Marshy needs to be moved to the first line, he said, rather than seeing, or to the third line. I'm sorry. Marchie needs to be moved to the third line rather than seeing Kessel with Smith, and he would like to also see Kessel with Smith and Carlson. I don't know. Go ahead. I'm
Well,
jumbled up
there's a
too.
lot of great stuff here, and I'm going to spit out mine, and then I'll talk about some of the ones that I've seen. I want to go back to some balance for a little bit right now. The hero lines will be there when we need them. You can always reignite, Stone, Eichel, Stevenson, et cetera, the Misfits, whatever you got to do, whenever you got to do it. But I think now, at least for the short term, a little more balance is needed, and also gives an opportunity to unlock some talents of players who haven't been getting it done right now. So line one, I would love to see Eichel and Stevenson got to stay together. I think that is a pair that's going to be together for a long time, I believe. Move Stone off that first line, replace him with hot dog Phil Kessel. Phil Kessel on the top six. I know, Tony, I know. Phil Kessel on the top six, at least on that game on Friday with Vancouver, there was some pep out there. You have Stone and Stevenson. I'm sorry, you have Eichel and Stevenson who are going to move the puck around. Kessel's going to make some passes. I think that will unlock a little more of Kessel's ability. The second line, and I'm borrowing this from Carson Meyer. Carson Meyer, I think, was the only one to suggest this. And the second I saw it, I liked seeing Nick Waugh as the line two center for a little bit. Give me Nick Waugh between Stone and Smith. That line right there, all four of these lines, in my opinion, create mismatches. That line will be very tough to play against and score against. Nick Waugh is on pace for 20 goals, like right on the head. Riley Smith is scoring goals. Mark Stone is scoring goals. You have great balance on that line. Line three, Carlson, Marchie, and FC. Future considerations. Paul Cotter is my future. Paul Cotter right now is in that spot. You give me Paul Cotter with Carlson and Marchessault. I think same thing. Carlson and Marchessault.
I thought you meant to say, like when you tweeted that out, I thought it was PC. I was like FC, and then
FC, yes. Future considerations. Right. And that's what ultimately I think is going to happen on that line. But for now, our in scope, using the pieces we have the ability to use. Line three, give me Carlson, Marchie, and Cotter. Line four, Amadio / Howden between Coley and Carrier. Now, just going through some of the listener, we'll start with Carson Meyer. He agrees on Stevenson and Eichel and leave Stone. Line two, he's moving up Nick Waugh between Marchie and Smith. I'm okay with that. Line, basically all he's doing is swapping Nick Waugh and Carlson, which I don't mind that. I don't mind a small, subtle move. UGM Sports Lover, Cotter, Eichel, Stone, Smith, Carlson, Kessel. Some more people thinking Kessel should be in the top six. And then this is interesting. Stevenson down to line three.
Mm-hmm.
Possibly with Amadio, Waugh, Marchie, and then line four, Carrier, Howden, Kolesar. So basically he's saying you can move Waugh up and down there. And I like that idea. William Carrier Stan accounts. Oh boy. Stevie Eichel Stone, Misfits line. So he's only going to bounce the bottom six, which is interesting, but he's moving up Will Carrier. He's moving up Will Carrier to the third line. And then
he said, whoever's left.
Whoever's left. I like that.
That was Jeff Lane, or who was that?
That's William Carrier Stan accounts.
Okay. I think.
And then of course, this is just a PP machine out of order. Who is that? Matt Jacks. Okay. Yeah, that's fun right there. PP machine out of order. It's pretty good. We got some love for Paul Cotter on this one. Eichel, Stone, Cotter to line one. Misfits on line two, and then Amadio, Stevenson, Kessel on line three. That's interesting. Line four is going to be Waugh between Carrier, Kolesar. Amadio could be, I think he was probably saying Howden down there maybe, but either way, there's some very interesting stuff. Moving Carrier up to line three is interesting. Back to the lines that I suggested, my perspective is you have a mismatch on all four lines there. Jack Eichel is a mismatch for the league right now, the way he's playing. Line two, you have good defensive balance in Stone, Smith, and Nick Waugh, but they can score a lot of goals as well. And then all of a sudden, two-thirds of the Misfits on line three with Paul Cotter. That's just a fun line right there. Will they be a defensive liability? That would be the concern. But William Karlsson, the 200-foot player that he is, he'll keep everything. He'll keep the players out of the net. And then line four is the only line that doesn't get touched, outside of the center.
Okay, so I liked someone's.
No comment about Karlsson, Tony. Come on, I gave you a shot there.
I know. I was trying to avoid that. Okay, I was trying to focus on one of the comments that one of our listeners had about Stevenson, natural setter, right? So why not move him if things aren't going well, why not move him to a center position, either on line 2 or on line 3?
I felt, didn't he, forgive me, and I could be wrong on this. Was he a line 3 center to start the season?
Line 3, yeah. Yeah.
My
Go-
opinion, him in the bottom 3, he was kind of buried, almost like Phil Kessel. And again, if I'm wrong on this, I'm sorry, but I thought he had started the season down there on line 3, and it just kind of felt like he wasn't as noticeable.
Was he on line 2 though in the preseason with Carlson on the third line? Remember, Carlson he chased Amadio, and I forgot
Stevenson might have been on the second line, Tony.
I
I
think he might have been on the
honestly,
second line as the center for a
2 months
minute.
ago feels like 2 years ago, right? I mean, last night feels like a year ago, let alone a month and a half ago. So honestly, I don't remember, but I feel when he was at his natural position, he wasn't as noticeable, which oddly enough, last year when he was on the wing, he wasn't as noticeable. So, this is back to, your MVP, obviously, the fact that he can be center, he can be a winger, he can kill penalties, he can get out there on the power play. Stevenson is an absolute gold find for the Vegas Golden Knights. And gosh, I'll look up his contract here in a second for what he's getting paid versus what we're getting out of him. Someone you can move anywhere on the lineup. It's been an absolute gem of a signing or a trade, I believe. I don't know if it was a signing or a trade by good old McCrimmon, obviously, and McPhee. That was probably a tandem in acquiring him because obviously McPhee has history with him going back to Washington.
Yeah, fourth liner in Washington. We know the story, and wins the Stanley Cup, and really didn't produce a lot and a lot of points. And now he's a top liner with
Four years at 4 years, 11 million. He's getting two. He's
yeah.
getting
I
not
was
even
gonna say
3 million a
three.
year.
Yeah, I was gonna say about three. Yeah, drastically underpaid.
Who was it? Was it
When's his
there was an
contract up?
article. I'm sorry, Tony. There was something that just came out about Chandler Stevenson's path, and it might have been Will Carrier. I could be wrong, but Will Carrier basically is drawing a level of inspiration from Chandler Stevenson. And again, if it's not Will Carrier, I'm sorry, but point being is he's a fourth line forward on a Stanley Cup winning team. And now you look at when he gets the opportunity, what he can do. So you compare that obviously to what Will Carrier is doing, what maybe Paul Cotter can do and stuff like that. So just having Stevenson on the team for that motivation and inspiration is also, you can't put a value on that.
Yeah. So what is his contract? When does it expire?
4 years, 11 total.
I know.
It was a VGK contract too. So that's the beauty. Let's see, 2023.
Have another year.
Friendly, blah, 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 blah.
Yeah, I was just curious.
23, 24.
Okay. Yeah.
So what do you do with him? I mean, he'll definitely command return greater than his contract.
But he's also going to be a year older. I mean,
he'll be a year older, but also by that point will be 2 years of increased overall salary caps too. I mean, we might be pushing 90 million by 24, 25.
VGK Nightlife had Cotter, Eichel, Stone, Smith, Carlson, Kessel, Amadio / Waugh with Stevenson and Marchessault, and then Carrier or Waugh with Howden and Colasar. You think of those lines jumbled up.
I mean, there's a lot of commonality for Kessel coming to the top six right now. A lot of commonality. What was the bottom side of that one again?
It was Carrier or Waugh with Howden and Colasar.
Line 3 or line 4?
4. You want to know the bottom 6?
What was line 3 on that one?
It was also Amadio or Waugh with Stevenson.
Oh, I do. Okay, yeah. So basically, we're trying to find a spot for Nick Waugh is what that is, and that's kind of what the lines have been somewhat recently. Seeing Nick Waugh on line 3, and Carrier still scored on line 4 with Brett was it Amadio on because Howden's injured right now. So Leschyshyn, right?
Jake Leschyshyn came in. That's right.
Yeah. So that's the other thing. What's going on with Howden right now, and how is Jake Leschyshyn's game going to grow now? He's starting to get some semi-regular time at the NHL level. I mean, nice thing about Jake Leschyshyn, he's not a liability. You can bring him up. He will take care of things at home. And then obviously if he can chip in a little bit if he can just pass the puck to Carey, he'll be fine.
When will Bruce Cassidy stabilize the lines? Because at a certain point, you can't just keep mixing them up. I think you need consistency, no?
You need consistency, but you need to consistently do things to keep the team churning. The first 7 or 8 games, I believe, they started with the balanced lines, and maybe it was even 4 or 5 games. And then Cassie didn't like something. So bam, the Misfits are back together. Line one, the recent lines are basically where they are, and they go on a nice little winning streak. And then lately playing 500 hockey after that big 9-game winning streak, which is fair. There's nothing wrong with 500 hockey after you have a nice run like that as you're trying to find things. If I am going to give a little bit of second guessing, if you will, to Cassidy recently, especially in Saturday's game against Vancouver. If there's one game where I felt it wasn't as well coached as some of the other games, it was that Saturday game against Vancouver. I still wish I had, and I wouldn't trade a night for hockey with my son for the world, but I do wish I had an opportunity to ask Cassidy that one question. Hey, you changed the lines on Friday, you got results. Saturday, you stuck with the lines. What is it you liked about Saturday's game that kept the lines the way they were? I'm not saying I'm not second guessing. I mean, I'm fine. I'm second guessing him, but I would have really been curious to see what his answer is, because he would have given his thought process. He would have said exactly why he stuck with the lines. And the answer probably would have been something along the lines of, this has worked in the past. I want to give these guys a chance to succeed. Okay, fair. But 82 games comes and goes really fast, and the margin of making playoffs, not making playoffs is slim. Getting a first round home ice advantage is slim. Winning the division, winning the President's Trophy, and all that. It's all very slim. Every point matters right now. And I do feel that game, maybe he could have made some changes.
Two players that are in a bit of a funk, Marchessault and Stone. And so how does Bruce Cassidy get these guys juiced up now to start playing well again? Stone, for some reason, at the start of the season, I was just afraid that he wouldn't be able to last for the season with the back, and that he would be in and out of the lineup. I really felt that way because we know what back issues, are, and how severe that could be, and how much pain you're in. And then, so I don't know what he's doing lately. He missed that wide open net the other night, and he doesn't typically, but okay. And Marcia, so what's going on with those two players? How do they get them back into the rhythm?
Yeah, that's all fair observations right now. And starting with Marchessault first, I do believe Cassidy was trying to get him going by sending the message on Friday night, by starting him on Saturday night, starting that line. I feel like that was 100% for Marchessault. Listen, you had things didn't go well on Friday. Go get him on Saturday. You're starting. You're going to be out there for the announcement. Go get him, and hopefully things will go better. And then putting him out there. I mean, Marchessault got the most important shots of the shootout Monday night in Columbus, and he saved the game. Cassidy made a point to mention him because everyone was focusing on LT and 43, put in the lefty, whatever, or put in the righty, however that whole situation went down with Cotter. So Marchessault was kind of getting lost in translation, if you will, and credit Cassidy for crediting Marchessault for saving the game right there. So I think Cassidy's already trying things to get Marchie back into it. Same answer now for Marchie and Stone is you're going to possibly change the lines up a little bit and see how the players respond. Mark Stone, I don't think needs a lot of coddling. I think he needs a lot of one-on-one attention when things aren't going well. I think it's just simply a matter of letting him work out his game and putting players around him that can help elevate his game. I mean, the kid doesn't get much better, obviously, than Jack Eichel, but at the moment, Mark Stone isn't necessarily as noticeable as he has been in some of the other games, going back, obviously, to the Edmonton game where he got a couple of goals, and of course that shootout goal where Coach Logan Thompson told him where to go on that one. I mean, LT, he's going to be a coach one day. I think my next question might be, hey, is the coach just going to hand you the penalty shot card every day before you take the ice, and you're just going to fill it out and hand it to him? I'm curious what kind of response I get, but I'll save that one for after they win a game, not after a loss.
Okay, and make sure that you ask LT if he will indeed take one of those shots in the shootout.
Oh, that'd be awesome. I certainly
really want him
I'll
to
find a
take
fun
a shot.
question. There's been a couple fun, really fast before getting out of here. Patrick Waugh had a real funny sequence where he took the puck up, and the goalies go off when there's a delayed penalty, so they get the extra attacker, obviously. And Patrick Waugh, he actually winds up carrying the puck. Somehow it finds him as he's skating off. He does a friggin' 360 razzle dazzle thing. but he crosses center ice and gets a penalty. Goalies can play the puck until they get to center ice. And there's one other goalie that like dangled someone not too long ago. Same scenario, coming off, and they just make a little move and make a pass, and then they get off the ice. It's interesting to watch stuff like that. So who knows what kind of puck handler LT is once he gets on the other side of the blue line.
Coming up next, the Golden Knights are in Pittsburgh. Love these 4 o'clock starts here Pacific time.
Two more, right?
And
Two more.
two more coming up here. We'll preview that game, VGK and the Penguins, right after this on Locked On Golden Knights. Welcome back, and thanks for making Locked On Golden Knights your first listen. For your next listen, check out the Locked On Sports Today podcast, biggest stories of the day, plus instant reactions, big game recaps, and the take of the day. It's available on the Odyssey app, YouTube, and wherever you get your podcast, including Spotify. It's really cool to see us listed in there on Spotify yesterday, and we appreciate everyone making us your first listen. And make sure that you check out our YouTube channel, Locked On Golden Knights, and again, leave your comments and subscribe by all means. So some awful news broke yesterday from Pittsburgh. The Penguins' Chris Letang suffered his second stroke in less than a decade earlier this week. And his first one was back in 2014, his first stroke. He said earlier this week, his trainer said publicly that he at first thought that it was a migraine, and then it just wasn't feeling right. And they took him, thank goodness, directly to the hospital. And so he's 35 years old, not experiencing any lasting effects. Was at the arena against Carolina on Tuesday night, the 6-time All-Star. He's played pretty well this season for his team. And if you're Nick Delorier of the Islanders, you've got to be feeling pretty bad because he smashed him into the boards in the game earlier in the week. But in any event, horrible news coming out of Pittsburgh, and you just hope that Chris Letang can rebound from this second stroke.
Yeah, I mean, Chris Letang, what I like about him, like I love taking my kid down to warm-ups, down to the glass and stuff like that. Selfishly, I love watching it too. And there's times, hey, come on, let's go. It's more me wanting to go than him, but I won't tell him that. And Chris Letang, he's always one of the people that's there's always one player on each team that's designated to shag pucks, so to speak. It's not a bad thing. They're the one that directs traffic, sets when the drills happen and all that. Letang has always been that one for all the games I've seen Pittsburgh. And he's always the first one to flick pucks over the glass from the goal right there to people behind the glass. And he'll actually point like an adult, he wants to get a puck to a kid or something like that. And he actually looks up and says, thank you, when, to the adult who gives the puck to the kid. And, you don't see a lot of stuff like that. And I know this is a very small thing in a very, unimportant environment, but it's just, my thing about him. And more important things in sports. You have to reference, obviously, Pietrangelo missing games right now due to personal matters. Not going to speculate what that is, but you certainly hope everything is okay in his world as well. And, we're humans. They're human. We're all the same at the end of the day when it comes down to that stuff. So you hope everything's okay, health, family first, and hockey can wait.
And it's the first game back after the announcement yesterday. And I watched some of the pressers that they had there in Pittsburgh. And do you feel that this could be an emotional game for the Penguins tonight? Will they ride that emotion and more or less wear their hearts on their sleeve and play and step up for Chris Letang?
Of course. I mean, anywhere to find, motivation and things like that. We've seen that firsthand in Vegas, a couple different events and things like that where the team certainly rallies around. And Chris Letang is one of your, whether it's unspoken or spoken, but he is one of the leaders of that team, along with obviously Crosby and Malkin and all the players they've had. I mean, he's been with that organization for a long time as well. So, hopefully they do get motivation. Hopefully they do play inspired hockey, and hopefully it's in a 5-4 losing effort.
Okay, we've got Sidney Crosby, 11 goals so far this season. I watched the other day, they lost a bizarre game to Carolina. Jeff Petrie thought that he got boarded by the Canes, right? And then Brett Pesce and Andrei Svechnikov broke out because everything just kind of stopped in slow motion in OT on a 2-on-0. And they wound up scoring the game-winning goal. We've seen some really bizarre stuff, but they were awfully miffed the other night, were the Penguins. Penguins 2-0 last season in the season series against the Golden Knights. Jeff Carter, 4 points, has 13 points in his career against the VGK. And guess what? He's on the third line against a third line of VGK where there's a lot of question marks right now.
Yeah, no doubt. And we've highlighted this. Like, this is not unique for the Vegas Golden Knights for comparing to other teams in the league. Line 3 in this current salary cap era is the struggle. Your top 6 is going to be your top 6. Hopefully that's your scoring lines for all the teams in the league. Your bottom 3, your checking line, your energy line, whatever it's called in this new world of 2022 hockey, is pretty well set for most teams. Line 3, is it a checking line? Is it a defensive line? Is it a scoring line? Is it an energy line? Right now, our line 3 is undefined. That is the identity. It's being undefined right now. So looking back just at some stats here on NHL.com, just comparing Crosby and Eichel next to each other, it's interesting. Eichel, I'm showing 12 goals on my side, 12, 19, and 31, but only a +1 right now. And Pittsburgh's got their issues. They're 11-8 right now. I'll check their goal differential in a second. Eichel, 11-15, 26 points, but he is a +15 compared to Crosby, who's a +1. Pittsburgh Penguins goal differential is a +6, currently 8th place in the Eastern, or what's the Metro? Who sponsors the Metro?
It's the Discover NHL Metropolitan Division.
Discover. Okay. VGK +20 right now. That's just friggin' remarkable. And then the Boston Bruins are a +40. The Devils are +36. Oh my goodness. I know, right? It's
wow.
High scoring game Tuesday in Boston next week for the Bruce Cassidy revenge game.
It's reverse retro night in Pittsburgh too. On top of everything else,
Pittsburgh has a fun intro. I've watched it a few different times on YouTube. Always fun to watch the intros. Obviously the Golden Knights do it best, of course, but
other than Letang, I was looking at their injured list, and no one's on the IR for Pittsburgh. So they've got good health in their direction tonight, in their favor.
It's not showing in the standings, unfortunately, though.
Yeah, I think they've had some bad breaks, like 2-0s in OT.
Overtime is just crazy. I love overtime. It's fun. I love that. I love that Logan Thompson enjoys overtime.
For sure. He just really steps up, right? What did you think about Cal Peterson being put on waivers yesterday?
I don't know his stat line directly. I think it's bad. That's why it's happened.
Well, he gave up only 4 of the 9 goals the other night.
That's it. It's less than half, so we'll give him credit for that. I mean, Cal Pearson was a VGK killer, so get him out of the division. I've liked him against VGK. He plays well. He's looked the part, but sometimes, obviously, players only have a number of a certain team, I guess, and no one else.
Okay, it's that time. It's time for our locks of the night. Can I go first? You went first the other day. I'm going to go with the combo of Stevenson and Eichel. I just think
Stevenson, Eichel, going chalk. I think
Jack is just starting to get into his groove before he returns back to Boston and scores that hat trick.
Okay, let's go Nick Waugh and Marchie tonight. Let's go Nick Waugh and Marchie tonight on my side. Fam, hit us up on Twitter. I'll put a tweet out there. You guys let us know who you want for your picks to beat me and Tony. Take us home.
Yeah, for sure. We thank everyone for tuning in. Thanks for making us your first listen each and every day. And make sure that you subscribe to our YouTube channel and check out Locked On Sports Today, that podcast with the biggest stories of the day and much, much more. For my man, Chris Golick, I'm Tony Cardasco from Las Vegas. Move to the left a little bit so you can see me here. Thanks for joining us. We'll have a recap of the game from tonight, tomorrow, right here on Locked On Golden Knights.